And good morning. It is Saturday, September 30th in the year 2017. Our spontaneous topic of this morning, this podcast, this audio only podcast that I bring to you, focuses on the topic of humans using their sixth sense in a disaster when traditional communications, cell phones, telephones, the internet, the grid, when those forms of technology go down and we have to rely on our internal compass, metaphorically and literally. And then we have from the micro to specific situations to the macro. You could even say the disasters, the social disasters, the mind control that is already underway, the propaganda, the info wars. We have to go within. Spiritual survival. We need to go within. We need to go within and we need to find the answers that we need. When we look for the answers, they may not appear right away. They will appear on their own schedule. But if we show up looking for those answers, they will appear at some point. That is our responsibility. It is our side of the street. Many of us have been evolving out of the former state of consciousness that we were even directed to participate in, thinking that it's about the whole world waking up. It's really about us tapping into our own power. We are in charge of ourselves, and not everyone is in complete control of themselves. Some people have lost control of themselves and they've lost connection with their higher self, and something lower within them has taken over. That's how I see some human beings. I see a split in human consciousness in some elements of our society since the total solar eclipse. There's some positive things to discuss with regards to that. There's also some warnings for the future. So we can look at a situation where communications are not accessible for, say, a couple, family members. The question is, are they going to have another form of communication or connection amongst them, or a plan in action, or to be able to use their sixth sense and also access other plans or data? Maybe there's a meeting spot, and maybe they could be using an aspect of their intuition to meet at a particular spot. Maybe there's danger in the scenario that I'm discussing. That's the most common scenario that I'm thinking of, a situation where people need to remain out of sight, but they also need to regroup, but be very careful how they attempt to do so. I don't advocate a panicked way of going through reality. In fact, I think a lot of people are unmindfully going through reality panicking. Or on the other extreme, there's a lot of extreme apathy, people not wanting to know anything because by design they've been deliberately, their mind's been attacked by propaganda and fake news to a certain degree. And some people haven't completely woken up to it. Some people can see it in regular society, so they start tuning out completely, especially if it's labeled conspiracy. There's so much fakeness out there, right? Can we really blame them? We really can't. Some people just don't know all the reality that is out there. But by design, they created quite a few psyops in recent years to pollute the waters, the ultimate turd in the punch bowl, if you will. Another analogy or that other people have used to describe the idea of contaminating an area that people should be looking at with false information, so people will look away from it, not want to drink out of those waters, not want to have anything to do with it. And so when it comes to, oh, let's just talk about warning about World War III. Most of the people out there that comment on the possibility of such are discussing it still within the framework of the Western Anglo-Saxon New World Order versus the Eastern Bloc, China, Russia, New World Order, which still obviously includes Anglo-Saxon influences. We can actually see forces of influence behind China and Russia and their military technology rise. So it's not really a different world order, but some are arguing that it is. That Russia and China are opposed to the Western New World Order. They are not saying that it's the same New World Order, whereas I am. So this comes from my intuition, how I see this in spirit. I know there are others that see this in spirit as well. And we can see really this organized intelligence of evil that is opposed to us. Now, we don't want to let this awareness of this drive us mad. We want to let one epiphany or understanding lead to another, not just be stuck in a conspiratorial analysis of what's going on, but go deeper and ask, well, what are we doing here in these years in which these things are happening? Did we do something wrong? Are we here to bring awareness to it? If we seem to be hyper aware to the plots and the blueprints and the agendas and this type of thinking, for whatever reason, some of us that are here on the earth were able to perceive their agenda, or at least we think that we are able to perceive their agenda. And we believe, many of us as souls, having a human experience, that this is for a higher good, even if risk comes to the body. And I think that people forget that when they start looking at some of these conspiratorial directions, they start losing themselves in fear of being axed, fear of being killed or murdered. And we've been under this blueprint, this fear of them killing us for a long, long time. And I've been advocating since I began this series 12 years ago that we need to rise above that fear. Even if it's difficult living in a world where that's just dangling over us. Well, this is always the case with the contrarians of the day and age, whether it's today or whether it's 1,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago. Anybody speaking out against the grain is either killed or lives under the threat of such. Part of me suspects that there's purpose in standing against the eye of Sauron, against that threat of death, to escape beyond the confines of this world, the restrictions of this soul matrix, and the very physics in which it's based on. This is not the only world that there is. But I can see how there is major entrapment of the souls taking place with the promotion of such great evil. So Soul Survival 101 is something that a lot of humans, they never got a chance to read that handbook. And I'm not saying a literal handbook, but the idea of the basics of a soul surviving the temptations of this world in this day and age. And this is something for people to think about in addition with their prepping. So when we think about tapping into your sixth sense, let's just talk about that. There may be a situation where your cell phone doesn't work, where you need to tap into your sixth sense in order to determine what is the right thing to do, who to talk to, when to not get in that car. That person could be really nice. You could be male even, and not even think that you could be targeted because you're not a hot female. And there could be something creepy about that van and that individual. Or, we could also be misled by our internal hunches to a certain degree as well. I don't think that every hunch is completely accurate. So we need to work to keep ourselves clear. You should find ways that help you get clear within, things that clear your auric field, things that make you feel strong spiritually, physically, psychologically, emotionally, balanced. Vipassana meditation, one of the reasons I recommend that for someone that is, I consider myself to be somewhat reactive, emotional, and that is just simply about observing your breath without just being so reactive. And I think there's so much more to breathing exercises and prayer, meditation, connecting to the Creator. So there is purpose in learning what works for you through direct life experience. And it never ends. Learning never ends in this reality, in this world. We constantly grow, we constantly evolve on a spiritual sense, on a soul sense. People debate about physical evolution, which is fine, but there's more to life than physical. A lot of people are trapped in that level of consciousness. I'll remind you that you don't need to be trapped in that level of consciousness, nor do I. And when we allow others to trap us in the illusions of separation, we can be trapped into a false matrix notion of who we are, just like the Matrix, the movie. And when he goes back into the Matrix, he's wearing Neo's clothes and Neo's sunglasses. That's in his mind. Keanu Reeves, Neo, the actor, in the movie The Matrix. There's reality in that. There's reality in how we play a role in our spiritual strength in other planes beyond this one. And ultimately, attacks that come at us in the physical or attempted physical are a manifestation of what is happening in the spirit realms. If it's one thing that I've learned about being a public speaker and discussing these issues, it's that the attacks that come from people are actually derivative of a spiritual attack coming from somewhere else, and it is in direct response to the information that I'm putting out. At times, it's confirmations that I'm speaking about what needs to be spoken about, but at times, it's very stressful. When we can feel that focus, whatever it is, wherever it comes from, even if it seems to come through a human being or a look at the supermarket or a particular event in our lives. But we have to find balance. We can end up with a psychology that we can't trust anyone. If we end up thinking that way or in fear, we can fall out of balance and close ourselves off from that which is good. Now, I'm remembering this as I'm just speaking off the top of my consciousness. I saw elements of the world even as a young man trying to brainwash or socially engineer me into a hardened stance of trusting no one. And I've gone through certain cycles of opening up my heart, having full trust in the Creator, but still being hurt along the way or being tested, perhaps tested along the way, but not literally hurt, but certain things could psychologically seem to damage us if we're not psychologically, spiritually, emotionally strong when that experience happens. Again, how do we do that? How do we and that really comes down to like protecting our psyche is a larger conversation than something that someone thinks is just theoretical psychic protection. What's that for? Schizophrenics? What about cognitive function, protecting our psyche, strong mind, focus? And if we look at society, and I were to ask you, does it look like we're in a society now where people will sit down and read a physical book? Where people will sit down that are YouTubers and make an actual documentary, where people will sit down and also culminate what they think, what is their information, and not just copy paste someone else's information, or for all their media to be about their commentary on other human beings, not the actual concepts or ideas or principles, but just simply the personalities. Uh, if I asked you, does it look like this is an addicted cell phone society? Yes or no? Where people are looking more at that and the false light than each other. Would it take very long for you to formulate a response? So there are multiple elements to cognitive health. And what a lot of people just don't understand, either because they're human, and that's not to trash anyone. As humans, or whatever it is we are only accessing a certain percentage of our brain. And so, like, our understanding of each other, wow. Um, First of all, human beings, including myself, we don't really understand the inner workings of our own biology and the inner working, the heart and the pumping and the organs. It is a very complex system, nor is there any consensus agreement amongst the humans with regards to how the system functions, its energy centers, how to keep it in top optimum performance. But that's not just the body, that's the mind, that's the spirit. And the body, mind, and spirit are all linked. So if we don't even understand the basic dynamics of the physical, how do we understand on the deeper level the basics, the mental or the spiritual? And so yes, there is purpose in using the available information around us to evolve higher. But we should cultivate our inner sixth sense and our inner knowing to know whether the information is right or wrong. And there's definitely many ways to do this. And over time, for example, if you've been around the block in the alternative media, um, and you've also learned from your own mistakes, or you've chosen to evolve your own consciousness through your own mistakes, as I've tried to, as I look at my own mistakes, times in which I was duped by others, gave my trust away, didn't really see their true nature as snakes until time went on and I saw the archonic forces that, in fact, some of these alternative media figures actually seem to serve. And it's like, wow, this invasion of the body snatchers isn't just a movie. It's happening to consciousness within speakers on the internet. That's why you see so much fake disinformation. So some of us are able to see that. This is not just accidental either. When you have lots of birds flying in the same group, if you will, and we see similar groups of deceiving souls serving out these archonic, demonic, spiritual, parasitic, New World Order forces, whether you want to look at the spiritual or just the physical sense, and you're just simply looking at them as tools. So there's something that we can really say about the awareness that some of us have grown to A, there's a problem, and then from a decade ago moving forward, or for some of you several decades ago or longer, to now we have to really access this knowledge information within. The questions is not hey, when are people going to wake up, or who can I trust? Yes, it's good to know that you can trust someone to not deliberately deceive you. That is awesome. But ultimately, each one of us needs to access the truth within. We might find camaraderie with certain YouTubers and speakers, but we take the information that is relevant and we leave the rest. And all this relates to a preparedness scenario, whether it be a pack. Take those things that you need, and segueing back to that, because it is also in line with manifestation of that which is right for us. I don't think that we manifest all our fears. I don't think that we manifest our desires, but miracles do manifest for those in dangerous situations, whether it just be the power of your thoughts or related to your karma. That could be debatable, but I've seen it in my own life. I've seen God work through people. I've seen situations to where I was going down a hill in New Mexico, and um, my brakes went out and I could have died. And it was 2013. And I turned the wheels and I said, Angels, please help me now. You better help me now. You got me up this hill. Please safely let me get down the hill. Oh, fuck. And, that could have been a situation where I could have just slammed into someone or kept going down the hill if I just spun my car around and kept going down. That would have been bad to go in reverse into a highway. Well, I pumped my tires, but I got the car in the ditch. No cell phone, none of that. I would have to walk up miles to where I came from. I was there about a minute, and an Hispanic man in an old truck came up a minute later. He had a tire repair, auto repair, home residential set up about a mile away. Boom, right there and then we're towing the vehicle. I have had other God shots. So what I'm saying to you is I can already see in my own life acts or miracles that have even happened after negative things. Also, 2013 in Costilla County, I think the alternator belt went out on my Honda or Toyota that I was driving at the time. And what happened was I found myself in coyote country in the middle of the night, 10 o'clock, leaving someone's house with a belt out on a car, meaning like that vehicle was dead. Now, for those that know the back roads of the Costilla County, San Grito, Crystal Mountain Range area, you're talking like you could get attacked by coyotes. I never heard of that many particular things happening with coyotes to people there, but it's happened to others. Others have been jumped by coyotes elsewhere. So it can happen. And I would say that would be the derivative of a spiritual attack if it was to. And the absence of someone being attacked would maybe be a sign of protection. What I can say is I was walking in the darkness for several miles in the cold of February at night with a crank flashlight. Crank, 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 little bit of light, light goes out. Crank, 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 little bit of light, light goes out. Repeat, repeat. Are you getting the picture? And as I left my car, I turned around and what saw seemed to be a flash of light falling out of the sky. Not quite like a UFO, but just a little bit of light. Just, if you can imagine that light on the artwork of the human on the screen before you, from a light to just falling straight down and over a period of 3-4 seconds dissolving into nothing. What was that? Mysterious Valley, San Luis Valley. No, it's not typically safe to walk up on people's property when they have dogs. Roar, 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 roar. I straight up walked on someone's property and said, look, my car broke down. They were shocked someone came to their property. And that, I mean, it takes a certain amount of bravery to walk up and ask for help in the middle of nowhere in Colorado. That was terrifying. But I was taken back to the place in which I was. I was able to find it. Fortunately, that person had like one of those like hilltop lights, like going light that'll be in an area. Hey, that light, yeah, I recognize that. I think it's over there. And so, with barely a blanket, sleeping literally on dirt, at least I had shelter, but I did not make it home that night. There were other situations where it seems that God the Creator was watching over me. So this seems to have precedent over the topic that I started with, using your sixth sense. But I can say, as we're already witnessing these disasters, the sixth sense or intuition within me is to let you know that certain people are able to manifest these miracles over and over and over when they're in these random dangerous situations, while others may not. And I do think that the things that we do plays a part in it, as well as our thoughts and a little bit of some other things as well. But ultimately, having a higher moral compass and taking care of your health. And I can tell you that I've experienced some negative things in my life when I've been heavily addicted to chain smoking. And even if they are just American spirits, things seem to go better in my life when I'm not smoking so much or thinking so much about certain things. It's not always that way. Right now, I'm trying to exercise that mindfulness more than I have in my past ever. I'm working to break free of some thinking patterns. Ooh, and the rain is coming down. And while the rain is not coming down on me, the rain can be very purifying. And the rain has been building and building and building. And overnight, like, wow, I don't remember this much rain. That's probably going to turn to hail. This time last year, we got a few rocks over here too as well. A little bit of lightning, and we are sitting here at 9:30 in the morning, feeling this energy, lightning, now thunder, boom, as we go through these geomagnetic storms. See, this is the basic science nature of what we are. We are connected to the cosmos and all that is. Source creation is within. Information is within. And so in a disaster, people are going to have to use their intuition, go left or go right. Use their intuition whether or not they accept someone's help. People are doing that now as they're seeing a lot of these so-called intentional communities pop up. Some of them may be great for some people. Some of them may not be great for all people. And there are people that are gravitating towards some of my videos, some specific ones, in which I'm putting out that warning when people are in desperate situations and they're willing to work simply for a place. There are people out there. Oh yeah, that's the thunder. I don't know if you can hear that. It's like I need a shotgun mic outside that's like waterproof. That would be awesome. As well as a surveillance system. It is time to start upgrading awareness. And those things are cute too. Oh man, have you watched those crazy neighbor videos on 2020 or online? Oh my God. I don't have those kinds of problems. Things are pretty nice and quiet here, with the exception of a few things that I've mentioned. But I have it better than a lot of people that are living with a lot of interference really close to them or right next door. You know, so the thing that I call isolation, really, isn't really isolation if I'm able to communicate to you now, even with a thunderstorm and lightning, lions, and bears. Literally, there was a bear up here the other day. There's a bear up here on the property. I'm sure that's what got into the foam adhesive, and then had a fit and tore into some of the water. I mean, yeah. For those that don't know, there's a food issue with the acorns. Most people don't know that. So there's a food shortage, and it's affecting the bears. They're coming up into these residential areas where normally they're not here. So my intuition with regards to the macro led me years ago to thinking off the grid as far back as 2008. So we could start early in your life, your sixth sense, while the grid is still up. And you can put out the intention, this is what I want. You can put out the intention, I want to be in a safe part of America. It could be lonely, it could be scary, anything could happen, blah, blah, blah. The land where nobody will hear you scream, blah, blah, blah. But put out the intention, a safe place in the event of all-out war or other events, coastal events. And that's exactly what I did. And I based it around that. And it didn't manifest overnight. And there may be other places that I go in the future. But I mean, it took a good 8 years, 8 to 10 years, once the thought had manifested. And so now there's also separating the sixth sense versus psychic attack. Because, as they say, also, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get you. But we have to separate our own fears based on the mainstream media. The mainstream media can program you and I to fear others. They can program you to fear this group and that group. They can program me to fear this group and that group. And the groups may not even be the same. Think about it. Think about how custom tailored they've made the psychological warfare to affect you and me. How do we rise above that? We tap into our own truth within, not the radio broadcast, not some of these websites. Okay? Even if some of that news is truthful and hate crime here and this and that, we don't have to sit there and be a slave to the fear. Even if the warning is true, hey, watch your back. Hey, be aware. Use caution when traveling outside the United States. Think about what you're eating these days. Think about what you're thinking these days. Hey, watch your thoughts. Watch your thoughts. You know, people say, watch your back, watch your thoughts, watch your spirit, and take it higher. Take it higher. No, 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 no. As the rain kicks up, as we approach the middle of the hour. But yeah, I think about people's karma and good deeds in some situations bringing the right people together. And morality is a very important part of prepping, and it's something that a lot of people have been taken away from. Why? Because they've been taken away from their success. If they haven't been taken away from their intuition, they would see how some people in the media are trying to entrap their souls. How some people on the web are in a dark place that have been taken. Their consciousness has been taken by the dark grid. That doesn't mean that they have to take us down to the underworld with them. We have to help people go higher. Wow, it is really coming down. And I was just thinking, you know what? I need more water containers. I need, to dig a larger water catchment. Next year is going to be a big year for growing food. It'd be good to have the right help with that and to manifest things to the next level, have some shelters here built, get some help building basically the first home, and putting my focus on that. Whereas last winter, my focus was just on surviving my first winter here at this spot. The year before, another spot. The year before, another spot. And in a few years, I'll be exploring some other freedom, even deeper into nature. Stepping stones. stepping stones. And we need to know that before things get really crazy, that we have to be a part of our own thriving, survival to thriving. It's not just a slogan some people have used, surviving to thriving. But it's something that we really need to be thinking about, because we've been surviving if we've remained alive up until this point. Are we really thriving spiritually? Are we really thriving physically? Are we really thriving psychologically and enjoying our day as we, yeah, I know these are very difficult times. How can someone enjoy their day if they're super aware of all these wars and rumors of wars and all these other things that could happen and might happen in a world of angry people? And again, we get, and the thunder. And we get taught not to trust anymore. We get taught not to trust anymore. We get burned by this world. Is that the truth? Is that really the way that we should be living? Or do we need to take it higher to where we know whether to turn left or right? Whether we know whether to get in that car or not? We know whether to answer that phone call or not. We know whether to utilize our Facebook account or not, or when to deactivate it. We know whether we need to go north, south, east, west. That's ultimately where we need to be, because when things happen, when there's a you-know-what hitting the fan scenario, it won't be me. Others, a number of people, the media, that people can turn to for basic information about what's going on. If they don't have a media source, if they don't have technology, they're going to have to utilize their higher knowledge. If they don't have a weapon, something like a firearm, they will have to rely on their sixth sense even more so with regards to how they operate. Now, a person that is cultivating their body physically in the ways that it needs to be for such a situation, combined with cultivating their mind by reading, writing, maintaining cognitive function, eating the right things for the body and the mind, and spiritual maintenance, including meditation, including deep breathing, including the premises and idea of deprogramming from subliminal implants, also known as etheric implants, also known as negative thought forms. We have to deprogram and heal ourselves. There are people that may be able to heal you or I to a certain point for $300 or for XYZ. And I'm not here to say that I can guarantee that all of that is bunk. I'm here to say that I'm someone without $300, and also for something like that, and also realizing that there is danger in relying on other people to clear us from spiritual parasite issues or psychic attacks. It's like relying on your coach to get in there and fight your ring for you. It's like sometimes we got to go out and we got to get hit. And so a big part of psychic self-defense and the cognitive function is clearing out the gunk within the consciousness so we can think clearly. There are particular visualizations for this. For some, visualizing yourself in the mind space and clearing out, right, foreign energy. Visualizing literally what it looks like inside your mind. It can literally be the deck of, some sort of a enterprise ship of some type. We have a view of space or some other reality, maybe you're in the tropics, but it's inside your own consciousness with a seat of your own making. Is you literally have your viewing deck, that viewing deck that you see, visualizing what you're seeing clairvoyantly. You see, even if people don't even believe in this, that space in our consciousness, there's different names and then debates whether or not chakras even exist. But the fact of the matter is, there is a consciousness within our mind, within that space, between the eyes, inside the consciousness. Some identify it with the pineal gland, which has, ironically, a concentration of magnetite. There's a little bit about that in my ebook. If you want to support my work, check out my ebook down below. For a little bit of knowledge there about magnetite, you can also look online. There's a concentration of magnetite within human sight, if you will. Inner sight, beyond the physical. And so someone could be completely unaware that their consciousness is a receiver. They could be totally aware that there is such a thing as subliminal. Subliminal, subliminal, subliminal. For those that have seen Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas with Nixon, sacrifice, sacrifice, sacrifice. And I mean, there was a lot of truth in that movie. That was 1998, but a depiction of the 1970s novel, for those that don't know. But that's what we're also seeing now from the Nixons of today's day and age. The situation far more worse than the Vietnam War. What's going on in Afghanistan, what they're calling the longest war, as we see the sacrifice, sacrifice, sacrifice. And I've been one of the few in, I guess we call it spiritual community, online research, YouTube, that has talked about the bad spiritual mojo when you have troops coming back, bringing entities back from the Middle East, places where they've killed, raped, destroyed. I mean, this is like Pet Cemetery, ladies and gentlemen. This is like Little House of Horrors. This is like Tales from the Crypt. This is like, oh my God, we see the after effect of the Shekinah campaign. Most people don't even know what I mean by that. Shekinah, what, Babylonian deity? Awaken, awaken, Beetlejuice. Bomb, bomb. Ancient lands, bomb back to the Stone Age. Millions killed, almost a sacrifice. To what? For whom? Who benefits from millions dead? No, seriously, even within the Rothschild, Rockefeller, white supremacist ideology, who benefits from even white supremacy being carried out? Because white people certainly don't benefit from more strife amongst them. So who is behind this? You see, people really need to start tapping into their sixth sense to realize it on the macro level what is going on here. Human consciousness is under attack from dark, malevolent, telepathic forces. And we have to block their signal. Boom, yeah, as the next round of thunder as the angels go bowling in the sky. Boom! Another boom body shot to Satan. Boom! Palm strike, just drop with the knife hand. Sorry, man, I just feel the water is just pump me up. I'm not getting rained on. Everything's fine. Computer's dry. This is better than a Saturday morning cartoon. There's just, and I've been listening to a lot of different videos. I'm thinking about sharing. Look, let me just share something with you right now. Let's keep recording. I'm going to bring you some audio. This is from the 80s. This guy's old school. I mean, I'm ready to hear some Christopher Cross Ride Like the Wind. You know what I mean? It's like really... William Alexander Oribello. I'm not familiar with him, but his video is called Psychic Self-Defense with William Alexander Oribello. Okay, so what we're going to do for you now, I'm going to go to a random spot on the time code. Going now.
From
20 minutes in.
Except where we should be looking. And that is within ourselves. Within you, within me, within all individuals is the answer to everything we seek. True knowledge does not come from books. True knowledge does not come from a teacher. All a teacher does is reconfirm something you know or stimulate a response from within you. Books actually stimulate the memory, the soul memory of something you learned perhaps ages ago, in another incarnation, or in another lifetime, or in the infinite cosmos before you even came into this evolution. You have the answer within
I'm going to have to comment on some of this.
you. The cosmic mind
You have the answers within you.
and our mind is one and the same. Therefore, we can seek for answers through other people, through books, through classes, but all these are springboards for us to look within ourselves to find the true and complete answers.
Go left, go right, look within.
Seek for inspiration and guidance concerning all and every affair you have, but you must do this while in the silence. Now, what is the silence? The silence means to still your mind from all the clutter,
clear out the interference,
and all the outside distractions that are around us, and to go within into that state of peace and harmony, into the eye of the storm, so to speak, to find that answer and that guidance, that inspiration.
It's like we're going to act like we're at church here in the urban area.
To go into the silence is very simple. We simply do what we did at the beginning of this workshop today. You close your eyes. You allow your physical body to become as relaxed as possible by taking several deep breaths and then breathing relaxed and normal.
And I'm breathing now.
You think
Take
of
a deep
feet,
breath.
Your legs, the other parts of your body systematically from the bottom to the top, and will and desire that each part of your body relaxed until you are almost at the edge of sleep.
At the edge of screaming your head off. No, I'm just kidding.
And it is not dangerous. It's not like hypnosis or a deep trance. You can control it. You can come out of it anytime you like, just by taking a deep breath and opening your eyes and coming back to here and now.
Cognitive discipline.
But by placing yourself in such a relaxed
being
state,
able to focus,
you enter the inner state known as the silence, or the mental state of silence, and from that state, by sitting quietly, how long, Bill? How long should I sit quietly? That depends. You may sit there for 30 seconds, and suddenly inspiration comes to you. You may have to sit there for 5, 10, 15 minutes before anything comes forth.
So also, when you're exposed to ideas like this, there's always an opposite. So if someone's addicted to media, addicted to negative thought forms, they're going to have the opposite of inspiration. We do other things like we step away from certain digital addictions or other addictions and engage yourself in nature, writing, higher forms of communication, for some drawing, for some music, for some reading books, for some getting exercise. Really, I think it's healthy to do a mix of a lot of different things. Maybe before this lifetime is over, I'll get more into painting, drawing, maybe with the right friends in the future, learning a musical instrument. But certainly these are things that help tap us into that imagination and creative part of the brain, as to a part of the brain that is programmed to be subservient and to be programmed.
My advice to you is don't try too hard. Don't sit too long in the silence. 15 minutes is plenty. If the answer does not come at the time, if your inspiration or guidance concerning any problem does not come out of the silence, take a deep breath, open your eyes, go about your daily business. Perhaps later on in the day, a mental flash will come to you, a sudden intuition.
Okay, let's check out
You'll
another
know
area.
what to do.
And I know to
It
go
may not come that day. It may come days. So that's the way to change our thoughts. If something is bothering you, change the thought by replacing it with something else. The more you try not to think of something, the harder it will be to stop thinking of that thing. It will become an obsession with you. But if you replace that thought with something else, another thought, a better thought.
Now, people should think about the spiritual implications of fake news from a larger perspective. It isn't about influencing the election so much. That's a selection. Yeah, I'm making a political reference. I'm sorry, guys. It's the Alex Answer YouTube channel. I mean, come on. All right, so, it's really a spiritual attack on people's minds. Be afraid, all this disinformation. There's certain things to be afraid of. And especially with regards to women's safety. But when they manufacture hate campaigns under the guise of keeping women safe, but they're really hate campaigns, and they manufacture threats, or in some cases are even behind them, whoa, that's sinister. Because we need to be aware. Not necessarily afraid, but we need to be aware. What we have right now is manufactured thought forms. People actually living in these artificial thought bubbles. Why? Because these people never even knew that they needed to protect their own consciousness. That letting that fake news influence them is like giving the demons a skeleton key to their minds and spirits.
That is a way of changing your thoughts. We must understand the concept of crystallization. Anything we do in our lives, at any level, must first begin as a mental concept, as an idea. And that idea, when it is held, becomes a concept. And it may become a mental obsession. And from that point of our evolution, it is crystallized then into a lower dimension of the astral. The astral means emotional, desirable, passionate. All of these feelings come from our astral body, or the astral dimension. The body of feeling, desire, and emotion. So things first begin as a thought from our mental body. Then they crystallize into our astral body, or emotions, and they become desires. And from that...
Now, have you seen evidence of non-local awareness in your own life? You think about someone and they text you, be it positive or negative. Think about that.
At that point, they crystallize into physical manifestation. We think of something, then we start desiring it, then we do it. So by understanding this, we can better control our thoughts, because if we don't want something to crystallize into our emotional component and finally into our physical component, then we should blot it out the best way we can while it's still in its mental early idea stages. Anything you do want to happen, foster the thought, nourish the thought, keep thinking the thought until it becomes a mental obsession. Some mental obsessions are good. Some people have the obsession to be a success. Some people have the obsession to be a better individual. Those are good obsessions. Keep those thoughts of purity, perfection, goodness, whatever is good to you. Hold those thoughts, and soon they crystallize into a strong desire to make it happen. And from there, they crystallize into a physical reality. Slowly. And do you feel that energy that you just created? Do you feel that?
Oh, perfect.
Now that can be used for many things. Do it again. Just rub your hands together and then slowly pull your hands apart. And you can almost feel it pull, like an energy. Now, you can do this and visualize a certain color and place that color into your body. If you need stimulation, see the color red when you pull your hands apart. Red is a stimulating color. And put the red in yourself, and you'll get that get up and go that you need. If you are ill physically,
Wake me up
blue,
before you
blue
go.
light is the healing color. You just rub your hands together, slowly pull up, see blue in your mind, blue light, and just put it within you. See it oozing from your hands and into your head, on down to your physical body. Blue is a healing color. If you need prosperity, you would see green. Green is a color of money. If you need more love, you would see pink. See, all of these colors are relative to certain states. Red is stimulation. Don't use too much red, though, because you don't want to be overstimulated. Then you won't feel these. Then you'll be really hyper. If you need love, if you're suffering from a resentment, someone has hurt you and you want to heal yourself of this feeling you have, rub your hands together, slowly pull it apart and see a pink energy and put the pink in yourself.
So this is actually really, really interesting that I picked that randomly, and I just downloaded this recently because there are, like, you look at Tai Chi, there is that particular exercise. Rosy palms is what one Western teacher of Tai Chi referred it to when I went to community college in the year 2002 and took a community college Tai Chi course. At the age of 15, I did teach myself a full Tai Chi form from book that I had at the time. At an early age, I took an interest in Chinese martial arts, and I really should look more at things like Chinese medicine and things of that nature. There's something that calls my soul, if you will, regarding ancient Chinese or Asian teachings. So yeah, also open to that. Other people's thoughts on that. It's actually during that period in which I read books on Taoism. And there's other things I'd like to share in a book, but I just want to pause and say that since I was a young man, the exercise of putting the hands side by side and stretching them, as you saw him doing, to me, it is much more of a moving martial arts practice. I believe that moving the hands around certain Aikido exercises regarding internal exercise or internal energy, certain Chinese kung fu exercises. There's certain things that I haven't done, like Chi Sao, with regards to Wing Chun. But a lot of these things deal with internal energy awareness. But yeah, within Tai Chi, that's where I remember that exercise, where there's a visualization of a chi ball. You can even type in chi ball meditation into YouTube. And it's the idea of a ball of energy that your hand energies are literally creating. It could be used for healing, that can be used for other things. With regards to Tai Chi, I believe again that's tapping into the chi of the body within the hands. Again, a reason why he called it rosy palms was because the hands became very red from the exercise, the focused energy, the energy in the hands. So we're actually going to look at 2 to 3 other areas. Let's go here.
Have the ability to see beyond what you would normally see. Also, practice observation. Lay on your bed and look at the ceiling and try to see everything that is on that ceiling. Try to notice every speck.
Have you ever found yourself doing that unconsciously in your bedroom? Have you ever found yourself in a traumatic situation to calm your emotions, fixating on a detail of the room and doing this unconsciously? I'm just curious because it seems that I've done this throughout my whole life. Maybe you're waiting in the principal's office and you're in the second grade and you're looking at the edge of that table.
Color, anything that shouldn't be there, even a speck of dust. Try to take in everything. Take a ballpoint pen in your hand and look at it. And twirl it around and look at it real good. You see, try to notice any scratches on the pen, like, damage on the pen or dents or anything. In other words, what I'm saying, practice being observant. Go into a room, turn on the light, look around the room, turn the light off, and go outside and think, now, let me see if I can recall everything I just saw and where it's at. Buddha, the great avatar, would do a similar exercise in helping his students to develop second sight. He would arrange several objects on a tray or on a board, and he would cover it with a cloth. He'd put the board in front of him. He may have a cup here, and a bowl there, and a key there, and a coin there, and another coin here of another denomination of currency, and maybe 2 or 3 other things. And he asked the student to sit in front of the table that was covered now and go into a state of mental silence. Then he'd say, open your eyes slightly, and he'd lift the cloth and let him look and then close it. He said, okay, what was there? Many people who were spies for different governments would practice this ability of observation to such a great point that they could walk through a room of people, many times with several dozen people, and know who was who in that room, just walking through a room. Now this takes practice, but if you can learn observation and then have moments of meditation where you cup your hands on your eyes and meditate in silence, just in quiet, you don't even have to think of anything. Just relax your mind, but sit looking into the darkness in the cupped hands. This helps you to say to yourself when you're meditating later, the better you get at this, you can say, what is so-and-so doing who's in another town, who's across the city? Now, if you spy on your boyfriend and you find out he's doing something, don't tell him you learned a technique from me. Okay? Okay. 'Cause
I just want to say, so one of the things that and it's not a new thing, it's just something that I'm able to tap into more here because it's quieter here off the grid. But for example, knowing when a certain person is going to come over and visit, someone that I don't see too often, but before he does, he'll enter my consciousness. Yesterday, a package, and I actually have it right next to me. I have some lentils here. I'm not a vegan. I'm not a vegetarian, but I am open to, just side note, some recipes or some ideas to make the lentils and things like that taste a lot better than just as they are. But I'm really into Indian spices, so that's something that would work for me. And so it was just using my sixth sense, I guess, guessing when because there's a lot of cars that pass by the vehicle, trucks, big trucks that pass by the area in which I live. I can hear traffic. It's not like a freeway, but they're still big trucks. So I'm just pretty much trying to use my sixth sense for whether it's going to come early part of the day, latter part of the day, and when to hop up or that period of time to really keep my eyes on the road for that UPS driver to pull right up so I can come right out with my little rechargeable lantern and save him, little bit of walking in the mud and in the rain. It's pouring right now, and to be right there. And I was. And there's other situations or things of that nature where somebody will be entering my consciousness. Somebody will be entering my consciousness, and then I'll get on Facebook and there'll be like a few messages from that person. And it really varies with regards to the person. There might be reasons why some of us are more connected to each other than we are to others. There might be a reason. There obviously is why some of you are drawn to my content. And some of you feel an affinity for it that you don't for others. There's also a reason why some people will detest it. It's a frequency opposite type thing. So we'll go back to this, wrapping things up here. But this is kind of cool. Going to just random parts that I feel are
magical words.
significant.
What about those? Do they work? Again, the secret behind so-called magical words lies in the power of the spoken word. Many of the languages of all the nations were devised and invented and developed by mystics who knew the power of certain sounds and certain forming of words when spoken would produce certain mental states.
Certain voices.
This is why many of the magical words are taken from Latin or from the ancient Sanskrit or the Aramaic, which is the language that Jesus spoke. Many of these magical words come from these languages because some of the ancient languages are very mystical. They were developed by mystics, therefore they contain great power in the way the words are formed.
One thing that I don't have for my off-grid setup is ways of listening to music outside of, say, the computer. So that's where instruments come in. I would even say tuning forks. I think there's something really attractive about tuning forks that are adjusted to certain frequencies. I don't think I've ever had a pair myself. It's something that I'm thinking more about with regards to where I am on the planet, um, how the body is affected by positive sounds, and there's a reason why I listen to very little heavy metal. I listen to some on occasion older stuff, but I'm always repelled by that gangster rap, other angry forms of music, and even highly sexualized um, pop culture videos and things of that nature. I steer clear of those sounds as well, even to the point where even being critical of it, but playing those clips, not so good to even expose the audience to some of those frequencies and sounds. So those are things that come to mind as well.
Okay? So that's the reason some words produce magical results. That's the reason herbs and stones do. Now what about the symbols? Inborn within every one of us, in our subconscious mind, when we come into this world, there is a certain knowing, a certain instinct that we all have. Again, the mystics devised a system, that when we see certain lines, certain shapes, and when we see these variety of shapes put together or by themselves, it produces a certain subconscious reaction. There were 4 basic symbols used in metaphysics throughout the ages.
Now, this is particularly interesting because some symbols are used to put us into a trance-like state of control. People use the pyramid. And he's actually talking about the pyramid being flipped upside down, having a different meaning than, the totalitarian top-down control, which we identify, to be the symbol of the New World Order. Not to demonize entirely the use of that symbol, it has had different interpretations apparently in the ancient world, but he's about to get into some interesting stuff when we talk about the idea of inverting that and turning that pyramid upside down. Now think on this.
The circle, the triangle, the square, and the cross. And from these 4 symbols came many deviations of many symbols. The circle, because in the beginning the divine mind was neither mother or father. It was not a person, yet it consisted of all persons that would ever be. In the beginning, the divine mind was only able to be conceived as a vast circle of energy. It was nothing, yet everything. It was no one, yet everyone. It was existent, yet non-existent. It just was. It was eternal energy, enfolding and unfolding from and back into itself. And therefore the circle is the first mystical symbol. If you were to draw the circle and look at it and draw it again, how many people doodle? You ever doodle? Just sit down and write or scribble? Draw the circle and meditate upon the circle, and you'll come to know the first cause. The mystics told people to draw circles. Many mystics took a magical staff.
I know that when I was younger, I played around the idea of my own language based on symbols. And I was just like, I was probably 15 or 16.
An alleged magical staff and drew the circle on sand and would meditate upon it. Then wipe it out, then draw it again, over and over again. Then the divine mind was all energy, and then it came into itself in a point and manifested as a person or an intelligence or as a form, yet a great form beyond our comprehension, as I am that I am. And then they put a point in the center of the circle, and that represents the time when the divine mind encapsulated itself to manifest. Then from that point came a triangle of Father, Mother, Son. Father, Mother, Son, and back into itself. And that's the origin of the triangle. That was the second symbol.
And that's important because a lot of symbols have been misused by dark forces that aren't inherently evil.
The divine mind first manifested as I am that I am.
They can brainwash the humans on the earth into thinking symbols are evil.
And then the one became 2. It was Father, Mother, God. And then the Son. Father, Mother, Son. Or creation. The Son represents us, the creation. Yes?
I have a reaction to share. I had a piece of advertising. They were advertising that business. And it disturbed me very much, the symbol, because they had, the triangle was inverted. And point down, and I immediately, and I don't know how correct that is, I just immediately had a reaction. This is coming from lower forces. When I read the material, my suspicions again were, I wouldn't say confirmed, sure I didn't really confirm the suspicion because they are, but let's say they were heightened. And I wanted to ask you about the triangle, if it's ever inverted or in metaphysical terms, will always be to God. This was my understanding. And innately, I have never
It depends how it's used, Loretta.
Yeah.
In some of the fraternal orders, of mystic origin. They sometimes place the triangle with a point down to typify how that the sun, or creation, see, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, the Word was God, and the Word became flesh. We, as the sons of God, or collective one Son, came into this lower dimension, and we reverse our thinking. Instead of looking towards our source, we invert it down. So it represents that we have fallen. Okay, that the creation is reversed. Sometimes, though, it means the reflection of the great base. For instance, if someone had a basin of water and they put their face near it, with the proper lighting, they can get a reflection of their face, and their face will be upside down. So it sometimes represents that we are the microcosm, or the little face, or the little universe, a reflection of the great. But if it's by itself, it depends on the context it's used.
I was just going to say, as a novice when it comes to symbolism, but not looking at everything either entirely positive or negative, which a lot of humans tend to. A lot of humans tend to see some symbols that they use that are completely harmless, or they may be some harm. And then others could view symbols as entirely harmful, not making a whole lot of sense, or even numbers themselves, like literally numbers being evil, and related concepts. So context is important. How it's being used is important. Whether something is a pyramid sitting up or inverted, I think the context of what the pyramid or what it represents is important. So, you literally see Brave New Books make a symbol where they take the pyramid and they flipped it upside down. That's the example, Brave New Books in Austin, Texas. The idea of the Illuminati powers, what they think is their control or what they're in control over being flipped on its head. So that's the context of that. But if it was flipped in another way, it could signify maybe evil or something else, a misuse of energy or flipping something, depending on the context.
Physical body.
We're going to go and listen to one more section right here.
What goes on? That's what I meant a moment ago when I said we teach beyond the just ordinary psychic development, and we try to get into the great spiritual unfoldment and initiations and so forth. Okay?
Including
So all of these symbols, that's what we were talking about, symbols, right? Okay. We have the circle, the triangle, the square, and the cross.
I read someplace to the star. The cross symbolizes forgiveness and
Yes, because the symbol of death. Or the
I know, you're
symbol
just
of
waiting for this guy
limitation
to have a meltdown. Just to flip the table. It's going to happen.
becomes
Maybe happen later,
also the
years
symbol
after this.
of our salvation.
I'm just joking.
Because there is another symbol. There are several.
Just can't take it
schools
anymore.
that
Too
use
many
the symbol of
symbols.
the Rosy Cross.
Too many
There's
planets.
about 5 organizations in the world that use that term, Rosicrucian, or the Rosy Cross. In reality, no organization can claim that name, for the Order of the Rosy Cross is a hidden order. And it's none other than the group known as the Great White Brotherhood, or the Masters of Wisdom. That group, which are...
Now, I've been traditionally skeptical with regard to any spiritual Great White Brotherhood, but that doesn't mean that I know everything. That doesn't mean that I'm going to throw William Alexander or Abello under the... Damn you, William! How dare you cite the Great Brotherhood of Light? I mean, it was 1983. I mean, nothing wrong with Christopher Cross, but I mean, we know what was on the radio, folks.
higher beings, you see. And when I say Great White Brotherhood, I don't mean like the white race, but the white light, you see. But the being known as the Ascended Masters, the hierarchy, they are the true Rosicrucians, or the Rosy Cross. In other words, they teach mankind how, by mystical practices, to bring forth the rose, or the living substance, out of a symbol of death. The cross was a symbol of death, but it's also a symbol. You see the golden cross with the red rose, which means that the symbol of the 4 elements, again, transmutation of lead into gold, it becomes